I call Paul Waugh to make his maiden speech.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's an honour to make my maiden speech during the passage of such a landmark piece of legislation, and one that is very much long overdue. It delivers on our promise at the election of real change, and every one of us here is proud to represent it. It's also an honour to follow the members for Sheffield Central, Shrewsbury and Lagan Valley, who made such moving and powerful speeches. They're a real tribute to this intake, this historic 2024 intake. They show the excellence and the diversity of our intake. But in the maiden speech, it's customary to pay tribute to one's predecessors, and I sincerely thank George Galloway for his career of public service. But I'd like to pay tribute to the late Sir Tony Lloyd, a man who commanded respect across this chamber, and whose decency, whose internationalism and compassion are an example to every one of us. As Tony once advised his staffer, now the Honourable Member for Blackpool South, if it's not about making people's lives better, don't be a politician. And Rochdale certainly has a long history of making people's lives better, and of strong links to this Palace of Westminster. Indeed, it was a Rochdale lass, 15-year-old Emily Kelsall, who in 1843 laid the foundation stone of the Elizabeth Tower that houses Big Ben. The Kelsalls were close friends of another of my predecessors, the great parliamentarian Richard Cobden, and his ally John Bright, who famously described England as the mother of parliaments. Cobden and Bright, one a Rochdalian by adoption, one a Rochdalian by birth, were two Rochdale radicals who campaigned as vigorously against slavery as they did for cheaper food through the abolition of the Corn Laws and for a wider franchise. But another Rochdalian who was friends with Cobden and Bright was the Lancashire dialect poet Edwin Waugh, after whom my youngest son Eddie, who's in the gallery, is named. Waugh captured the beauty of the hill and hillock, the knoll and the dell, the moors and the brooks of my Pennine constituency. From Blackstone Edge to Hollingworth Lake, from Healy Dell to the landscape gardens of our magnificent town hall, there's greenery and beauty throughout our town and its villages of Littleborough, Wardle, Milnrow and Neway. But the Pennine Way cuts through my seat. Yet our Pennine Way is more than just a well-loved footpath. It's a way of doing things too. Our Pennine Way is one of community, of cooperation, self-help and resilience. Ever since the Rochdale pioneers set up shop in 1844 to sell affordable basics like butter, sugar and flour, we've been proud to be the birthplace of a global cooperative movement. And I'm proud to be the first Labour and cooperative MP in our town's history. That sense of cooperation and community has been enhanced by the currents of migration that have flowed through our town as steadily as the River Roach itself. Scots, like my own Waugh clan, the Irish, Italians, Ukrainians, Poles, Pakistanis, Kashmiris, Bangladeshis, Nigerians, we even welcome the occasional Yorkshireman, have all staffed our factories and our NHS and created new family businesses. All are proud Rochdalians. Just as our town has shown real resilience in the face of economic downturns and government cuts, our community cohesion has proved resilient too, despite the provocations of extremists on all sides. As well as radicalism and resilience, our town story is also a story of renewal though. Many of our mills have closed, but there's still a strong sense of industry, of hard work, of grafters, of entrepreneurs, of people who put something back into the town that raised them. People like Richard Tang, whose Zen Internet started as a small home-based business, but is now a major network provider and our biggest private sector employer. People like Sir Peter Ogden, who founded Computer Centre and this year invested millions into my beloved Rochdale AFC, up the Dale, in recognition of its role as a hub of our community. From the brass bands of Milnrow to the rock and folk music of Feel Good Festival, our arts are thriving too. Rochdale Sixth Form College is one of the highest achieving in the country. Our Armed Forces veterans support groups are superb. Spring Hill Hospice is a beacon of excellence, and the Oasis ward at Rochdale Infirmary is a national model in dementia care. Now, my own journey from Rochdale to this place was only made possible by an enabling state. A fantastic teacher, John Williams, who spotted the potential in me and my twin brother, Mark. A council house that gave me the stability and affordability that many families sadly lack today. Free school meals that meant we could focus on learning, not earning. Now, as former chairman of the lobby, it would be remiss of me not to also mention the role that my parliamentary journalism has played in propelling me onto these benches. And I'd like to dispel the vicious rumour that the main reason I stood for Parliament was to guarantee 5 more years of jerk chicken. The phrase Westminster Village is often used as an insult, but this place really is a village in the best sense of the word. A community of more than 3,000 people from all walks of life, making sure this is an open and accessible people's house, not the preserve of an elite. For 26 years, I've had the pleasure of working in this building, with its fabulous canteen staff like Betty, Rita, Daphne, Terry and Godfrey, the doorkeepers like Adrian, security staff like Saeed, the many clerks and officials, and of course, the police. And I'll never forget the day when we lost our own village policeman, PC Keith Palmer, in the terror attack of 2017. It's been my pleasure to work with my lobby colleagues and with MPs of all parties, and I'd like to reassure all the Tory leadership contenders, don't worry, your secrets are safe with me. Politicians and journalists have more in common than either would like to admit. At their best, both are honourable trades, and they are trades, they're not professions. But the big difference between us is the difference between criticism and action, between commentary and doing. In the end, I could no longer just write about the appalling state of our public services. I wanted to do something about it. I wanted to do something about the NHS workers, like my wife, who came home every night exhausted by a sheer lack of staff. I wanted to do something about all those working class kids like me, whose destinies are still too often determined by their postcode, not by their potential. I also wanted to do something about this misinformation age, the one that we live in, and to combat the rise of extremism that disfigures too much of our discourse. It was Stanley Baldwin who denounced the newspaper barons for wanting power without responsibility. Today, too many social media companies have exactly that. And this summer's spread of online hate and falsehood is a challenge to which this government will have to rise, just as it rose to the challenge of cracking down on the thugs who attacked our communities and our brave police officers. Tackling online publishers, and that's what they are, they're not platforms, they're publishers, may sound radical, but in reality, radicalism is often just common sense ahead of its time. A reminder that all our rights are hard won. What could be more commonsensical than demanding the vote be given to the working classes and to women more than 100 years ago? What could be more commonsensical than this railways bill giving the public control over the services that spend billions of pounds of their own money? What could be more commonsensical than tackling climate change or giving towns like Rochdale more control over their own future? Towns that don't want a handout but which deserve a fairer share of the national resource. Now, the Pennines are famously the backbone of England, but the people of Rochdale are the backbone of England too. Common sense, radicalism, resilience and renewal. These are the watchwords of my hometown, of this country and of this government. I'll do my utmost to live up to them.
Yeah. I call Charlie Dewhurst to make his maiden speech.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing